Welcome to the Teacher's Guide to Best Tiered Instruction. This video will focus on Grade 5 benchmark NSO 1.3, which is to compose and decompose multi-digit numbers with decimals to the thousandths in multiple ways, using the values of the digits in each place. Students will be using objects, drawings, and expressions or equations. Please keep in mind that students come with knowledge of this skill. They've been working in previous grade levels with whole numbers. The use of a graphic organizer, which has rules of which place values they can use to compose and decompose a decimal, is a great start. Please allow students to use either base 10 blocks or place value discs depending on their level with this skill. The base 10 blocks allow them to see the relationship in scale and proportionality to build connections between place values. Here we're giving them a decimal with wholes and tenths. This allows students the flexibility to use any base 10 block they would like, because they understand that they are determining what is the whole and what is the part. When students are forced to use all tenths, they need to understand the relationship between the whole and the tenth. So here we've written that one whole is the same as having 10 tenths. So as we decompose 3 wholes, it is the same as saying that we have 30 tenths. So 30 tenths with our 5 tenths from the beginning will give us 35 tenths. I've also related it back to the base 10 blocks they're used to working with for, again, that proportionality and for them to see the parts that compose the whole. Now students must use tenths and hundredths only. As they start composing and decomposing into smaller place values, it's a great time to discuss the math that's happening behind it. Students learn that if there is nothing in that place value, it doesn't mean that it can't be done. Just know that now I need to put a 0 to represent I have nothing in that value, but I can still use the piece size to create the same value of the given decimal. After students are done using hundredths only, now we start forcing them to go into the smallest place value, which is the expectation of this benchmark, to the thousandths place. Again, we've had to put a 0 to represent I don't have any thousandths. However, now I have a new part to use. This would change the base 10 blocks if you were using them with students. But as I'm recording, on the right-hand column, I want to make sure that I'm also encouraging students to look for patterns that are happening. Noticing that we're using the same digit, but as our place values are getting smaller, the amount of pieces that I need actually is becoming larger. This is a great time to also tie in the equivalent fractions of tenths and hundredths. To progress from the concrete to the visual component of this, I've printed out grids. These grids have rods as well as the unit cubes. So on the rod side, we're going to interpret these as tenths. I've given students a decimal, but I've also made sure to identify a color for each place value. So here we've outlined 2 wholes would be 2 flats, and then that 1/10 would be 1 rod in another flat. So here we're emphasizing that whole and that part again, and then having students visually see how many tenths are composed of 2 and 1/10. Because I have 10 tenths in each flat, that leads me to 10 tenths plus 10 tenths plus the 1/10. You can also give students the visual and have them determine the 2 values that are represented. So here they would count the wholes and the parts. And then again, since we're using the tenths side, I would ask them, how many tenths do you also have? As we progress, now we're ready for the hundredths side. The hundredth side, they can see, again, has more pieces, but I'm still using colors to identify each place value to have them model the decimal, which connects with other benchmarks. But then they can utilize that visual to then tell me how many tenths and hundredths do you have, or how many hundredths do you have. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a few new strategies to try with your students. If you have some ideas, comments, or questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Have a great day.